I like to conjugate a couple of verbs together just to make sure that you know how to do it. I often compare this to math. And when you first learn how to do math, you were probably counting pictures of animals, maybe in preschool or kindergarten. And you'll see a picture of 3 bunnies and then maybe 2 bunnies, and you count them all together, and 3 plus 2, you get 5. And that's how you learn how to add. But by the time you go to first grade or second grade, if someone asks you, what is 3 plus 2, you don't have to count bunnies anymore. You do it in your head. It just clicks. And that's the same process for your brain as verb conjugation. The problem is we don't know when that's going to happen for each person. It depends on your prior experience to the language, your natural ability to pick up languages, how much you practice. There's too many factors. So we have to kind of do the work, and then one day you just won't have to conjugate anymore. You'll just know instinctively how to use the verb, and you never have to do it again. And that's a beautiful day when that happens. So in our example here, we have the verb hablar. To conjugate the verb, we're going to take off the AR ending. You can see that here. And we're left with a word root. Now, I like to pay attention to the word roots because they're going to help you understand more about the language. And I'll show you with our first example in a second. You don't have to memorize them. You don't have to study them particularly by themselves, but just paying attention to them and taking note as you go is very helpful. And then when we have our word root, we have to add our new ending, which in this case is going to be the O. Everything we're working with in this chapter is going to have the O, because remember, we're only working with the yo form right now. So when you add that, you end up with hablo. And that's the step-by-step process for verb conjugation. At first, you're going to be doing it like this. You're going to be writing it down. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be a little confused. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But then, just like with the bunnies and learning how to add in kindergarten, won't take this long, but hopefully in a couple weeks, you'll be doing them in your head for the present tense common verbs. And then in a couple of months, you'll be doing even more in your head, or perhaps the past tense. And that's the goal that we want to get to. So once you have your verb conjugated, in Spanish, you have your subject and you have your action. So if we take a look over here, hablo, I've added an object to this, one that we've seen in this chapter, Chino, which is Chinese, the language. And I added that just to make a more interesting sentence. I could just say hablo, I speak, but everybody speaks. That's not very interesting. So if we can, we're going to try and take it a step further. Hablo Chino. And then to make a negative sentence in Spanish, you simply have to put no in front of the verb. Instead of don't, like in English, you just put no. No hablo Chino would be I don't speak Chinese. And you'll see neither of these are using the yo pronoun, because that O at the end is telling me 100% already the subject. So I'd like to try a couple of these with you. The first one that we have here is cocinar, which is to cook. And I'm going to conjugate it over here. So I'm going to write out the verb first, cocinar. And then remember, my first step is to take off that AR. Now I'm left with my word root, cosine. And from there, I'm going to add my new ending, which is the O. And now I have cosino. I went from cocinar to cook, just the verb by itself with no person doing the action, to cocino, I cook. Now, when I mentioned looking at the word root, the reason I mentioned that is because you'll see this word root used in other parts of speech. For example, cocina is a kitchen. It's using the same word root. And we already saw in this chapter cocinero or cocinera is a cook. That's what I mean when I say that paying attention to the word roots is very helpful, because they're going to help you understand the context of something, even if you don't understand exactly what a cocinero is in a sentence. Sometimes that little clue that has something to do with cooking because it's coming from the same word root as the verb cocinar, sometimes that little clue is all you need to put together the context and to figure out the word. So you'll start to see a lot of these that kind of sound the same, but they're used in different parts of speech as a noun, an adjective, an adverb, or a verb. So now that I have cocino, I can start to make sentences with this. I can write this down here in the third column. That's what you'll do. But I can go even further and I can make sentences about the things that I cook. Cocino, off the top of my head, thinking of words that I already know, I would probably say pollo. If you're not familiar with that, that means chicken. So we can very quickly add an object, and if you don't know the word, you can look up words, because it is actually better for you to look up the word and make a realistic sentence for your life. It's going to tell your brain that, wow, this is important because I stopped what I was doing to go find this word. So I need to hang on to that word because it's important enough for me to stop what I'm doing to go look for it. That's much better than just picking a word like tacos that you know is in Spanish, but really isn't something that you do. And that's going to be it. That really is verb conjugation. You're going to conjugate these verbs here, all in the same form, all in the yo form for practice. And then down at the bottom, to help you start to put together sentences, we have some time and place expressions that you'll see in the true and false. And those are basic ways that you can really make your sentences a little more interesting right off the bat. I hope that this helps you understand more about verb conjugation. And remember, right now we're doing just the yo form, but in the next chapter we'll be working on the to form, so that way we can ask and answer questions. And that's really the basis of your conversation and communication.